The news is filled with horrific images of fires and explosion. The President of the United States holds a press conference to announce the start of the most ambitious project yet. It aims to save all the citizens from the impending disaster. However, reporters are extremely concerned. They have been given information that engineers and scientists are being secretly abducted at night to a secret underground base. That's one thing that can only be interpreted as, the government has already made its decision. They'll survive. The rest won't. In one of the bunkers, deep under the surface, a man starts to come out of cryogenic sleep. He emerges from his pod and slowly comes to his senses, looking at the control panels and computer systems, and then goes to wake his partner. But his partner is already awake, pleading to be released from his capsule. Once free, the man complains that his own sleep cycle was longer than his colleagues, shaking off the last traces of grogginess. He approaches the computers and does a systems check, logs in and verifies that both computers are alive, and he checks the air quality on the surface. The outcome is still not good as in earlier cycles. The air remains polluted. One of them, an engineer, sees seismic activity near the surface as they are reading through the list of tasks that will be done in this brief wake-up time. It's a pretty bad sign, but Bauer shrugs it off. If it had really damaged the bunker, they'd be dead already. They would have been suffocated to death by toxic air while sleeping. They split up the work and go to work. They have just 2 hours left in the cycle and 20 minutes have passed. The man pauses for a moment and then approaches the board with the pictures. Suddenly, a woman's voice breaks the silence from behind him. Turning around, he sees a young woman smiling softly. She tells him that he was in her dream last night. Suddenly, Bauer interrupts their discussion, asking his partner if the system diagnostics are complete. Reluctantly, the man steps out of the room and gets back to work, but the woman comes back behind him, obviously upset that he hasn't told Bauer anything about her, although he promised he would. The engineer feels a tinge of guilt and promises to tell her everything in the near future. Bauer overhears the conversation and is confused as to who his partner has been speaking with. The man doesn't want to explain, so he gets absorbed in the life support diagnostics for the scientists sleeping in the cryopods. Upon his return, Bauer feels that his partner has been communicating with one of the sleepers. With barely concealed irritation, he vents his frustration. He's fed up with these sleeping scientists. He is not sure that the air will ever be safe to breathe. And while these people remain frozen in time, they're slowly losing their own lives taking care of them. He also doesn't know why these scientists are relevant, particularly that weird herpetologist on board. His partner patiently tells him that the herpetologist works with reptiles and amphibians and that these scientists are the last hope of humanity. They're the final keepers of crucial knowledge without which mankind has no chance of rebuilding. However, Bauer is skeptical and doesn't buy the argument. Walking down the corridor, the engineer tries to convince Bauer that their work is critical, but Bauer isn't budging. Once the engineer completes his work, he can sit down to watch TV, while Cartwright reviews the records and calculations to determine how long it will take for the air to clear. Bauer, though, isn't interested in listening. He's addicted to a show he's watched 100 times. The news segment starts immediately after the game with events that occurred years ago. The anchor covers several worldwide blasts. Their sources said the attack on Tel Aviv earlier this year was with some sort of a hybrid nuclear chemical weapon. The engineer is outraged by Bauer's attitude, but decides not to argue. With 17 minutes left in their wake cycle, he sets about mixing some sleeping cocktails, leaving Bauer to prepare the concoctions. He goes to the bathroom with an adult magazine. After the systems check and the capsules are powered up, the engineer goes back to the supply room. That's when the hallucinations start again. He sees the young woman finishing the cocktails. The man goes back to the main room and suddenly sees one of the capsules begin to spark and then catch fire. He panics and shouts to Bauer to get out as soon as possible. 7 minutes into his shift, Bauer fires out with a fire extinguisher and they are able to extinguish the fire, but the capsule is destroyed. Bauer flies into a rage, blaming his partner for not thoroughly checking the systems. The lights go out and oxygen stops at that moment. Their shift is over. However, to their shock, they are still able to breathe. Going through the documents, they discover a backup air supply unit and decide to find it. With a flashlight, they find the emergency valve for electricity and oxygen and open it, but nothing happens. The lights remain off and breathing becomes more difficult. Thinking they're about to die, Bauer confesses he once had a wife and 3 daughters. He was only supposed to be a single, but he was not. He didn't think the world was really coming to an end. All the rest of us are still up there and he's stuck down here. Then the lights come on, the ventilation starts again and the timer resets. They have 2 hours more to correct the issues. Wading through all these documents, they attempt to work out how to fix the capsule and locate the part storage. Bauer is furious. The bunker is obviously hastily constructed. There are still many things that he hasn't done, but his partner finds another storage room on the blueprints of the bunker. Taking a risk, they decide to check it out. To get there, though, they'll have to break the seal on their compartment. They know opening the hatch will release some oxygen and cut down their time, but they go ahead and open it anyway. Bauer made weird noises to frighten his partner as they walked through the new area. It cracked him up. They went into one of the rooms and looked about, but they did not find anything. They went to the next room and there they saw a lot of different crates. The engineer spotted his imaginary girlfriend, Abby, near one of them and decided to check it out. They discovered the components they required within. The men then returned to the main hall, having taken all of the items. After fixing the capsule, Bauer volunteered to test it. His pal was opposed to it because it was his own chamber, so he felt he should be the one to test it, but Bauer insisted and the guy gave in. Bauer got into the capsule and noticed an oxygen leak. He told Cartwright to go and look at the compressor and Cartwright went and looked at the compressor. The capsule suddenly went haywire and Bauer was gasping for air, on the brink of suffocation, when Cartwright rushed back and saved him, but in the process damaged the equipment even more. Snapping back to reality, Bauer was furious that Cartwright took so long to come. He nearly choked to death. He said he had been in the vicinity of the entire time, but was unable to locate anything to cut the capsule's film. He also reminded Bauer that it was his idea to test someone else's chamber in the first place. The second capsule was now useless, so Bauer proposed to free up space by killing one of the sleeping scientists so Cartwright could take the capsule, but his partner refused to sacrifice an innocent life. They were employed to guard the scientists. Bauer managed to persuade him that this was the only way out and finally Cartwright gave way. They were going to give one of the sleepers a lethal dose of morphine, but at the last minute, Abby halted Cartwright and proposed a different plan. Cartwright realized that he was on the verge of crossing a line and offered Bauer an alternative plan. Bauer promptly rejected the notion and a quarrel arose between them. The engineer then exchanged punches and finally agreed to try a different approach. Cartwright recommended moving to other sections to seek assistance. Since other labs were still logging an activity, that meant people were alive there. Bauer hesitated. If they depressurized another section, they'd have even less time. But Cartwright was willing to take the risk. Putting on his protective equipment, the man left his area to sneak into the adjacent shelter, and he almost immediately ran into a dead soldier. As he went further in, he saw slight blue dust in the air, the highly dangerous pollutant that is tainting the air. After some searching, he found the sleeping quarters, but everything was dead silent. Nothing was working and there was no life. He felt like he had lost, and was ready to surrender when suddenly Abby came back, encouraging him to continue fighting. At that moment, Bauer's voice was heard over the radio. He had found a way around to the other section. Cartwright followed Bauer's directions and scuttled through the narrow ventilation shaft, and was shocked to find the bodies of others who had not escaped. This is the route by which Cartwright arrived at the target area, where it was found to be completely destroyed, and its inhabitants long dead. He climbed out through a hole to the outside world where he saw a ruined city that extended into barren, lifeless wasteland. He went back to the area where the ships had sunk and realized what had happened. All of them here were long dead. As he was attempting to improve his radio signal, Bauer noticed a knife on a nearby table, which was the same knife Cartwright had been looking for. There was something about it that didn't seem right, so Bauer decided to dig through the recordings. Suddenly, fear struck Cartwright as he looked around. The whole thing was a sham. Probably they were the only survivors. Activity logs from other sections. It's a mean trick to make the technicians feel less lonely. Meanwhile, Bauer had been watching the security footage, and he saw that Cartwright was there when he was nearly suffocated and had rushed to his aid at the last moment, and he was bitter at this. He knew that he couldn't simply turn his back on all this. When they returned to the bunker, Cartwright faced Bauer, who was now holding the knife firmly. Bauer stated that he had seen the video and knew the truth. Cartwright had tried to kill him. Cartwright pleaded, saying Bauer was mistaken, and asking for an opportunity to explain. But Bauer was determined and would not let him into the main section from the intermediate section, believing Cartwright was too dangerous. When he realized that his suit was nearly depleted of oxygen and that he was about to suffocate, Cartwright made his best decision to find another way, and once again, Abby stood by his side. Crawling through the ventilation shaft, Cartwright listens over the radio to Bauer's angry accusations and threats. Bauer is monitoring him on the cameras, but at some point, he loses sight of his partner. Exploiting this, Cartwright takes a back route through the vents and enters their section. He's relieved and decides to go back to the main hall, but then he hears a gunshot ring out overhead. Bauer has discovered a pistol and is prepared to take his revenge. Cartwright ducks into cover and shouts, apologizing and trying to calm him down, offering to make peace. Bauer refuses. Taking the opportunity, Cartwright sneaks past quietly and makes his way back to the main hall. He checks the medical cabinet there and considers his options. Then, Abby shows up again. She urges him to kill Bauer before Bauer kills him, but Cartwright isn't willing to give up hope. He feels there is still a solution to this. Then another gunshot rings out. Bauer is shot in the shoulder with Cartwright. A bloody battle ensues. Bauer is pushed back by Cartwright and rushes into the cryo chamber room. He slips a little piece of paper out of his pocket. Bauer picks it up. This is a picture of Abby and the sleepers in the cryopods. Bauer finds Abby and threatens to kill her if Cartwright doesn't surrender. There's no other way, and Cartwright tricks him, giving Bauer a lethal dose of morphine. Realizing it's the end, Bauer accepts his fate, saying goodbye before slipping into unconsciousness. The power and oxygen shut off once more 5 minutes later. Left alone, Cartwright heads for his cryopod. Finally, after what feels like an eternity, the surface air becomes breathable again. Everyone awakens from cryosleep automatically. The old and worn-out Cartwright awakens from its sleep and recognizes Abby among the others. Subscribe to watch more videos like this. Leave a comment about your favorite movie, and we will make it next. Thanks for watching.